Welcome to the Casuals Guide to UFC Fight Night Hermansson vs. Pyfer, where I show you filthy casuals why this card is going to be a banger. So hit that like button, subscribe, and let's get right into it. In the main event, Jack the Joker Hermansson takes on Joe Bodybagz Pyfer. Jack will be protecting his number 10 ranking against a surging Joe Pyfer. This will be a huge jump in competition for Joe Pyfer. Jack has always been a great finisher. He has 10 wins by knockout or TKO and 7 by submission. He has been going back and forth with wins and losses. He lost to Jared Cannonier by TKO. Then he would submit Kelvin Gastelum in one round via heel hook. Then he dropped the decision to Marvin Vettori. He would bounce back with the decision win over Edmund Shabazian. Then he dropped a split decision to Sean Strickland. Next, he had a unanimous decision win over Chris Curtis. In his last fight, he would get finished by Roman Dolidze. And Joe Pyfer's popularity shocked me a little bit. He became a star immediately after winning his contract on the Contender Series, and he would make his UFC debut against Alan Amedovski, and he would win by knockout in the very first round. He will follow that up with a big win over Gerald Meerschaert by TKO in the very first round, and he has been on the up, and in his last fight he would fight a very dangerous guy in Abdul Razak Al Hassan, and he would submit him via arm triangle choke in the second round. His rise has been incredible, and now they level up his competition a bit with Jack Hermansson. This is a huge opportunity for him to jump into the rankings, and for Jack, he looks to defend his spot and prove he's still got unfinished business in this division. Don't miss out. In the co-main event, Dan 50K Ige takes on Andre Touchy-Feely. This matchup was originally going to be Dan Ige versus Leron Murphy, but an injury to Murphy caused him to drop out of the fight, and Feely has stepped in. Dan Ige has been up and down recently. He dropped decisions to Bryce Mitchell, Movsar Evloev, Josh Emmett, and the Korean Zombie. He did get some good wins over Nate Landwehr and Damon Jackson. He has been among the ranked featherweights for a while, but has dropped to 13. So of course he's been getting matched up with unranked guys. Andre Feely has been around forever as well. He joined the UFC in 2013. He is 23-10 and has been up and down in the UFC so far in his career. In his last fight, he would get back on track with a knockout win over Lucas Almeida, but before that he would drop a decision to Nathaniel Wood. This is a big jump in competition for him, but this is going to be a fun one. Both guys like to bring it. Both guys like to strike. Don't miss out. We got a banger when Brad Tavares takes on Gregory Robocop Rodriguez. This is my pick for fight of the night and also my pick for the fight to look out for. Two fighters who are always down to get down. Brad Tavares has been a staple of the middleweight division for a very long time. He has fought a bunch of the top guys at middleweight. He has losses to Dricus du Plessis, Israel Adesanya, Robert Whittaker, and Yoel Romero. He is still a tough fight for anyone. In his last fight, he would win a decision win over former middleweight champion Chris Weidman. He is a tough striker who is down to brawl. He'll be facing a slightly more technical striker in Gregory Rodriguez. Robocop is a powerful striker with 8 wins by knockout or TKO, and he is 5-2 in the UFC so far, and he has fought some killers. He has knockout wins over the Iron Turtle Jun Young Park, the Cuban Missile Crisis Julian Marquez, Chidi Bang Bang Njokuani, and Dennis Tululin. His fights are non-stop action. His fights with Marquez and Njokuani are must-watch fights. He went to war with Julian Marquez until eventually he would finish him. He would have to bounce back against Chidi after getting hurt early into the fight. He would get one of the nastiest cuts I've seen. He was split wide open, but was able to turn it around in the second round. In his last fight, he would steamroll Dennis Tululin, showing how multifaceted he is when he took him down and finished him with some nasty elbows. This is going to be such a great fight, and I cannot wait. Don't miss out. We got a marvelous middleweight matchup for you filthy casuals when the black belt hunter Rodolfo Vieira takes on Armin Superman Petrosian. Rodolfo Vieira is true to his name. The black belt hunter is a decorated Brazilian jiu-jitsu monster, and his transition to MMA only continued to prove how dangerous his grappling is. 8 of his 9 wins are by submission, and he would lock in an arm triangle choke in the second round against Oscar Pichota in his UFC debut. He would follow that up with another arm triangle choke against Saparbal Safarov. It would be a roller coaster in his next 4 fights. Anthony Hernandez shocked the world when he would not only defeat Vieira, but he would submit him via guillotine choke. He would bounce back with this huge submission win over Dustin Stoltzfus via rear naked choke. Then he would drop a decision to Chris Curtis but it would be back to usual business when he would lock in another arm triangle choke against Cody Brundage. He is still super dangerous on the ground, but his losses have shown that his striking is not where it needs to be, especially when he cannot take the fight to the ground. He's going to have to take this fight to the ground no matter what when he faces Armen Petrosyan. Armen is 3-1 in the UFC, and this guy has been facing nothing but killers in the land of the unranked. Just like half the UFC roster, he earned his UFC contract through the Contender Series. He made his UFC debut against RoboCop Gregory Rodriguez, who's also fighting on this card, and they went to war. They went toe-to-toe in a bloody fight where Petrosyan would win a close split decision. He would be matched up with another killer when he would take on Caio the Natural Bahayo. He would do his best, but he would drop a unanimous decision to Caio and the Fighting Nerds. But he would get back on track with a decision win over AJ Dobson. In his most recent fight, he would get another unanimous decision win over Christian Leroy Duncan. He was able to outstrike a great striker, but now he's going to put his grappling shoes on because he will have to fend off takedowns of Rodolfo. I think Armen is for sure the better striker, but if Rodolfo can take this to the ground, he can add another limb to his collection. This is such a banger between two guys who are always down to throw down. Do not miss out. Michael the Menace Johnson takes on Darius Beast Mode Flowers. Michael Johnson is a UFC veteran who is 21-19. He is a fun striker who has fought everyone. He has some huge notable wins over Dustin Poirier, Edson Barboza, and Tony Ferguson. On the other hand, he has some terrible losses to guys like Clay Guida, Stevie Ray, and Darren Elkins. Depending on the day, he can be a world beater or he will lose to some guys he really shouldn't be losing to. His last fight ended in a terrible way for him. He would get knocked out by Diego Ferreira in identical fashion to the way Josh Emmett knocked him out. Darius Flowers is a much newer face in the UFC. He made his UFC debut on short notice against Jake Matthews at welterweight. He would get choked out in the second round via rear naked choke, but now he gets a full camp in his natural weight class. 8 of his 12 wins are by knockout or TKO, and I think Michael Johnson is the best test any fighter wanting to break into the rankings could get. He is a great litmus test, and we're going to see who's the real deal. Don't miss out. Albert Machete Durev welcomes Robert Bruzek to the UFC. Durev is 16-5 and he is 2-2 in the UFC so far. He made his UFC debut against Roman Kopylov where he would win a unanimous decision. He would lose his next fight against Joaquin Buckley via doctor stoppage when his eye would swell shut. He would win a super close split decision win over Chidi Njokuani. In his last fight, he would get submitted by Jun Yong Park via rear naked choke. It's been a roller coaster for him, and now he's facing a guy making his UFC debut. Robert is 17-5, but he was on a nasty 5-5 win streak with all 5 wins coming by first round knockouts. That's probably the best way to earn your way into the UFC. 11 of his 17 wins are by knockout or TKO. He has big power, but his takedown defense will be the deciding factor. Albert will be looking to take this fight to the ground, and he isn't the best at landing takedowns, but oh boy, we know he will try. It's going to be an interesting matchup. Don't miss out. Alright guys, that was my rundown of the UFC Fight Night Hermansson vs. Pyfer. Let me know what you guys think. It's going to be a great night of fights. Don't forget to tune in, and I'll see you next week for UFC 298 Volkanovski vs. Topuria. But until then, protect your neck and take care.
They talking crazy about you. They said
brother,
they smash
who
you.
cares? Who cares, brother? Who cares, brother? Who cares? Today, smash.